Hey everybody, Greek Geek here, back with a special comic book review. Today I am going to give an overview and a review of the Walking Dead Compendiums 1 through 4, the complete series. Before we go any further, if you wouldn't mind considering clicking that like button and subscribing to check out my other comic book and toy videos. So what this will be, I'm going to assume that folks have already seen the show, so I don't want to hear people saying, hey, you spoiled Glenn's death for me, or this character or that character. If they died in the show, I'm going to talk about it if it happened in the comics. I will not spoil things that happen in the comics and were different from the show. So yeah, if you've seen the show, you'll want to stick around and watch this. So these have about 47, 48 issues apiece, and pretty thick each one. Retail for $59.99. So Compendium 1 starts just like the show. Rick wakes up in the hospital bed. World has gone to crap. Eventually makes his way to Lori and Carl, and we get the jealous Shane, and that plays out just like the show. And eventually we get some new characters introduced here. Herschel, Maggie, the farm. Of note, Daryl Dixon is not in these books. So, he's probably the most popular, one of the most popular characters, of course, the spinoff and everything. So he is not in here. But I'd say 80 to 85% of the comics in the show mirror each other. Some characters are, different sex in the show versus the comic. But the best part of the first volume, the governor is a much more crass version in the comics. I've got to be careful what I show here, but the governor and Michonne have an insane storyline. It's extremely graphic. It was almost uncomfortable to read and see what is done. So this is definitely not for the faint of heart. And Compendium 2 is 49 to 96. And that introduces Eugene, Abraham, and Rosita. Of course, we all remember Eugene was this brilliant scientist who had to get to DC, and it was mission critical. Abraham was trying to get him there to, do his secret mission to save the world. And of course, we find out that was all BS, just like the show. So very true to the comics there. And volume 2 is a little bit of a slow slog. They get to Alexandria, Hilltop. We meet Douglas Monroe, who in the show was played by was Deanna. So the different characters there, male and female, but similar characters. And of course, Gregory. He is exactly the same in the comics as he is in the show. Just a backstabbing, conniving, cowardly, manipulative guy. So book 2 was probably my least favorite of the 4. We did get some character introductions, but it really ramps up as we get to Compendium 3 because Neghan is here. And obviously, if you've seen the show, you know how brutal and crass he is. The comic is just like that, probably even more brutal. Jeffrey Dean Morgan nailed it in the show, and they use identical dialogue. When you're reading this, it is identical. They didn't have to do anything for the show. Robert Kirkman gave them the perfect Neghan character that they used. And of course, everybody remembers the traumatic death of Glenn. When we were watching that live, you didn't know who was going to bite the dust. And that was I remember getting just chills and so afraid you didn't know what was going to happen. And it is brutal in here. I cannot show the shots here, but it is just as brutal as the show. And so in this volume, we see Rick and the characters that have started from the beginning really starting to toe that line between sanity and insanity as Neghan and the Saviors have just, wrecked their lives. And we get the introduction of Alpha, which leads us into the 4th and final volume as we conclude the saga. And last but not least, book 4, we get some new characters introduced. Princess, who's very funny and quirky, just like in the show, but we get the Commonwealth, as Eugene has been talking to Stephanie on the radio, just like the show, meets up with her. Pamela Milton, who also goes as the governor, not quite as vicious as the governor earlier mentioned. And similar, her brat son, Spencer, Mercer, the stormtrooper brigade that's in there, and the Commonwealth. And we race to an ending that is much different than the show, and I have to say, much more satisfying. We get a complete story. It ties it up perfectly, you know, nice bow at the end. I will not spoil that, but you will be surprised. So overall, if you are a fan of the show, you've got to pick these up. I am usually a slow reader, a couple issues of a comic at night, but I would sit down with these and read 100 pages. You just say, oh, okay, you know, one more, a couple more panels, couple more pages, and next thing you know, you've been reading for an hour. You can't put it down. You can't wait to see what happens next. Like I said, these are $59.99 retail. On Amazon, they're anywhere from like $35 to $45. You can pick up the whole set for about $160. As always, I will put a referral link to each volume if you want to grab those, help support the channel. But based on the amazing story, the psychology back and forth, the redemption arc of certain characters, and it's just, you can't put it down. I give this a slam dunk on my Greek Geek Gyro scale, gyros for the non-Greeks, a 5 out of 5 gyros. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Like I said, comment, like, and subscribe. Pick these up. They are amazing. You will want to read them and reread them. I will see you next time.